Imagine being adored by millions, hailed as the epitome of grace and beauty, only to leave it all behind for a role that demands more than you ever imagined. What compels someone to walk away from Hollywood stardom to embrace the weight of royalty? Grace Kelly's story isn't just a fairy tale, it's a poignant saga of ambition, transformation, and sacrifice. What did Grace truly leave behind when she traded the silver screen for Monaco's crown? How did she navigate the pressures of royal life while preserving her identity? And what is it about her life, an untimely death, that continues to leave the world in awe? Grace Kelly's journey is more than a legend. It's a window into the delicate balance between personal dreams and public duty. Let's dive into details. The story of Grace Kelly didn't begin in the glittering halls of a palace or under the harsh lights of a film set. It started in the bustling city of Philadelphia in 1929. Born into a family of privilege and ambition, Grace grew up in an environment where excellence was the standard, not the exception. Her father, John B. Kelly Sr., was a self-made millionaire and an Olympic gold medalist in rowing, while her mother, Margaret Major Kelly, was a former competitive swimmer and the first woman to coach women's athletics at the University of Pennsylvania. The Kelly household was a microcosm of ambition, instilling in Grace and her siblings a relentless drive to achieve greatness. Yet even in such an environment, Grace stood out. Her quiet determination and poise set her apart, earning her admiration at an early age. While her siblings excelled in sports, Grace gravitated toward the arts. She developed a love for acting, performing in local plays and school productions. By the time she graduated from high school, her passion was undeniable. But convincing her family of its legitimacy proved to be her first major hurdle. Her father, in particular, dismissed acting as an unserious career, calling it a slim cut above street walking. Undeterred, Grace pursued her dream with the same resilience that would later define her royal life. In 1947, she enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, where her natural talent and magnetic presence began to shine. Juggling modeling gigs to pay her way, she navigated the competitive world of theater with grace, earning her first major acting opportunity on Broadway with The Father in 1949. Hollywood soon came calling, and Grace Kelly was ready. Her film debut in 14 Hours, 1951, hinted at her potential, but it was High Noon, 1952, that established her as a leading lady. Directors and audiences alike were captivated by her ability to convey profound emotion with subtlety. Grace became the go-to actress for roles that required elegance, intelligence, and a touch of mystery. By the time she starred in Mogambo, 1953, earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, Grace Kelly was a household name. Throughout the 1950s, her career skyrocketed, with films like Rear Window, 1954, Dial M for Murder, 1954, and To Catch a Thief, 1955, she became one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Grace was not only a cinematic talent, but also a fashion icon, with her sophisticated style influencing trends across the globe. It was a golden age for Hollywood, and Grace Kelly was its shining star. Yet Grace wasn't content to simply bask in her stardom. Beneath her poised exterior was a woman deeply committed to her craft and her personal growth. She chose roles that challenged societal norms, portraying strong, complex women in an era when female characters were often relegated to supporting roles. She also maintained a reputation for professionalism and kindness, earning respect in an industry notorious for its cutthroat nature. Still, as much as Hollywood adored her, Grace yearned for something beyond the silver screen. By the mid-1950s, her life took an unexpected turn. An invitation to attend the Cannes Film Festival in 1955 led to a meeting that would change her destiny. During a carefully orchestrated photo session, Grace was introduced to Prince Rainier III of Monaco, a charismatic yet reserved ruler who was immediately captivated by her beauty and elegance. Their courtship was swift and intense, conducted largely through letters and arranged visits. By January 1956, their engagement was announced, sending shockwaves through Hollywood and Monaco alike. For Grace, it was a decision that symbolized the ultimate romantic gesture, leaving behind her flourishing career to marry the man she loved. For Rainier, it was a strategic move to secure Monaco's image and future on the world stage. The union of a Hollywood star and a European prince was nothing short of headline material, capturing the imagination of millions around the globe. On April 18, 1956, Grace Kelly became Her Serene Highness Princess Grace of Monaco in a wedding that redefined grandeur. The ceremony, held at the Cathedral of Our Lady Immaculate in Monaco, was broadcast to an estimated 30 million viewers worldwide, cementing its place as one of the most iconic weddings of the 20th century. Grace's wedding dress, designed by Helen Rose, became an enduring symbol of bridal elegance, inspiring countless imitations for decades to come. Yet, behind the glitz and glamour of the nuptials, Grace faced a profound transition. The world saw a radiant bride stepping into her new role, but few recognized the personal sacrifices it entailed. Grace's decision to retire from acting at the age of 26 to fulfill her royal duties was not entirely her own. While she embraced her responsibilities, the loss of her artistic outlet left a void. Monaco, though enchanting, was far removed from the vibrant, creative energy of Hollywood. Her new life required more than just adapting to royal protocols. It meant leaving behind the freedom and identity she had cultivated. The palace's expectations were rigid, and her every move was scrutinized by both Monaco's residents and the international press. Grace soon discovered that being a princess was as much about symbolism as it was about service. For all its challenges, Grace approached her role with grace and determination. She embraced her duties with the same professionalism she had brought to her acting career. From attending diplomatic events to supporting Monaco's philanthropic initiatives, Grace worked tirelessly to redefine the image of the principality. Yet, even as she strove to adapt, there were whispers of discontent. Life in the palace was far from the idyllic romance the world imagined, and cracks began to show in her seemingly perfect life. Grace Kelly's new life as Princess Grace of Monaco quickly proved to be a complex balancing act. On one hand, she was celebrated as a symbol of elegance and modern royalty, her Hollywood charisma breathing new life into the small Mediterranean principality. On the other, she found herself bound by the rigid expectations of royal life, which often clashed with her independent spirit and artistic sensibilities. The public adored her as the glamorous American princess, but behind the palace walls, Grace faced a series of challenges that would test her resolve. Monaco itself was undergoing a transformation. Once known primarily as a haven for the wealthy, it needed an image boost to compete on the global stage. Grace, with her Hollywood connections and impeccable public image, became the centerpiece of this reinvention. Prince Rainier relied heavily on her charm to promote Monaco as a cultural and financial hub, a role she embraced with characteristic grace. Yet the pressure to maintain a perfect facade weighed heavily on her. Her transition from actress to princess wasn't just about titles, it was about identity. Grace had left behind a flourishing career to step into a life of duty. While she excelled in her royal responsibilities, there were moments when the weight of her decision became apparent. Friends from her Hollywood days often spoke of her longing for the creative freedom she once enjoyed. Grace reportedly found solace in her philanthropic work, channeling her energy into causes close to her heart, including children's welfare and the arts. Despite her efforts to adapt, Grace's new life brought its own set of frustrations. The palace was steeped in tradition, and any attempts she made to modernize its operations or bring in fresh ideas were often met with resistance. Prince Rainier, though deeply in love with Grace, was a traditionalist at heart, and their differing approaches to leadership sometimes created tension. Grace's desire to implement changes in Monaco's cultural policies often clashed with Rainier's more conservative outlook. At the same time, Grace faced scrutiny from the media and Monaco's elite. Her every move was dissected, and the expectations placed upon her were unrelenting. As an outsider, a Hollywood actress turned royal, she had to work twice as hard to prove her worth. Even minor missteps could ignite a media frenzy, fueling rumors that her transition into royal life was anything but smooth. Her personal life, too, was far from idyllic. Raising her 3 children, Caroline, Albert, and Stephanie, brought immense joy but also considerable challenges. Grace was deeply committed to her role as a mother, striving to provide her children with a sense of normalcy, despite the pressures of royal life. Yet the children grew up under the harsh glare of public scrutiny, and their lives often became fodder for tabloids. Grace's attempts to shield them from this relentless attention were not always successful, adding another layer of complexity to her role as both a royal and a mother. By the 1960s, Grace had firmly established herself as a beloved figure in Monaco, but her struggles persisted in more subtle ways. She longed to reignite her passion for acting, though she knew this was impossible given her royal duties. Alfred Hitchcock, the legendary director who had helped cement her stardom, even approached her with an offer to star in Mourning, 1964. Grace was reportedly tempted, but palace officials and Prince Rainier opposed the idea, fearing it would diminish her standing as a royal. The conflict between her past life and her present role left her feeling torn, though she rarely let these emotions show in public. To cope with these internal battles, Grace turned to creative outlets. She began exploring poetry, photography, and gardening, activities that allowed her a semblance of the artistic expression she had cherished in her Hollywood days. These hobbies became a private refuge, a way for her to retain a sense of individuality in a life dictated by protocol and tradition. Meanwhile, her marriage to Prince Rainier, though strong in many respects, was not without its difficulties. The public saw them as the epitome of a fairy tale romance, but behind closed doors, their relationship was marked by moments of tension. Rainier's responsibilities as a ruler often left little time for the couple to nurture their bond. Grace, ever the perfectionist, worked tirelessly to support her husband, but their differing personalities sometimes led to misunderstandings. While Rainier was pragmatic and reserved, Grace was more emotionally expressive, leading to occasional clashes. Despite these challenges, Grace remained committed to her role. She saw herself not just as a wife and mother, but as an ambassador for Monaco. Her efforts to promote the principality on the global stage earned her widespread admiration, but they also came at a personal cost. The relentless pace of royal duties, coupled with the scrutiny of her every move, left her with little time to focus on her own well-being. Her health, in particular, began to show signs of strain. By the late 1970s, Grace experienced recurring headaches and bouts of stress-related fatigue. Friends and close confidants noticed a change in her demeanor. The once vivacious actress appeared more subdued, her laughter less frequent. While she continued to fulfill her obligations with grace, it was clear that the pressures of her royal life were taking a toll. The contrast between the public image of Princess Grace and her private reality became increasingly stark. To the world, she was the embodiment of poise and elegance, a modern-day Cinderella who had achieved the ultimate dream. But for Grace herself, the dream came with sacrifices that few could truly understand. She carried the weight of these sacrifices quietly, rarely allowing anyone to see the cracks beneath her polished exterior. Still, Grace's resilience remained unshaken. She had a deep sense of duty, not only to her family, but also to the people of Monaco. She worked tirelessly to support charitable initiatives, often using her influence to bring attention to causes that might otherwise have been overlooked. Her ability to balance these responsibilities, despite her personal struggles, was a testament to her strength. As the 1980s approached, Grace appeared to have found a delicate balance between her public and private roles. Her children were growing up, and she began to step back slightly from the limelight, focusing more on her personal interests. Yet even in these quieter moments, the shadow of her sacrifices loomed large. For Grace Kelly, the Hollywood star who had become a princess, the line between her true self and the image she presented to the world grew increasingly blurred. As the summer of 1982 unfolded, Grace Kelly's life seemed, on the surface, to have settled into a comfortable rhythm. Though she continued to grapple with the sacrifices of her royal role, she had carved out a semblance of peace in her duties and her family. Her children, now teenagers, were forging their paths, and Grace herself had found quiet joy in her creative pursuits and philanthropic work. But the serenity she had worked so hard to achieve was about to be shattered in a way that no one could have anticipated. On September 13, 1982, Grace set out on what should have been an uneventful drive along the winding roads of the French Riviera. Accompanying her was her youngest daughter, Princess Stephanie. The two were returning to Monaco after spending time at their countryside retreat, Rock Agel. The day was warm and sunny, the kind that encouraged leisurely outings and peaceful reflection. Yet, as their car navigated the treacherous curves of the coastal roads, something went terribly wrong. Accounts of the accident remain clouded by speculation and conflicting reports. But what is known is that the car veered off the road and plunged down a steep embankment, overturning several times before coming to a halt. Emergency services arrived swiftly, but the scene was one of devastation. Grace and Stephanie were both rushed to the hospital in Monaco, their conditions critical but not immediately clear. News of the accident spread rapidly, sending shockwaves through the Principality and beyond. Grace Kelly, the beloved princess and former Hollywood star, was suddenly fighting for her life. Crowds gathered outside the hospital, their prayers mingling with the somber whispers of reporters relaying updates to an anxious world. For her family, the hours that followed were a blur of uncertainty and fear. Doctors worked tirelessly to save Grace, but the injuries she had sustained were catastrophic. She suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, which some speculate had occurred before the crash and may have been the cause of the accident itself. Despite the best efforts of the medical team, Grace Kelly passed away the following day, on September 14, 1982. She was 52 years old. The grief that engulfed Monaco was profound and palpable. Prince Rainier, a man known for his stoicism, was visibly shattered by the loss of his wife. Their children, Caroline, Albert, and Stephanie, were thrust into the harsh reality of life without their mother. Stephanie, who had survived the crash with minor injuries, carried the additional burden of being present during the tragedy, a memory that would haunt her for years to come. As the news reached Hollywood, Grace's former colleagues and admirers expressed their sorrow. Tributes poured in from around the world, with many reflecting on her dual legacy as a cinematic icon and a dedicated royal. Alfred Hitchcock, who had directed her in some of her most celebrated films, remarked, "Grace brought something unique to the screen, a sense of mystery and elegance that is irreplaceable." For her fans, Grace Kelly was more than just an actress or a princess. She was an enduring symbol of grace, beauty, and strength. The funeral, held on September 18, 1982, was a somber affair attended by royalty, dignitaries, and Hollywood's elite. Monaco's Cathedral of Our Lady Immaculate, where Grace and Rainier had been married 26 years earlier, became a place of mourning as the world bid farewell to the woman who had captivated millions. Her burial in the Grimaldi family vault marked the end of an era, not only for Monaco but for all who had followed her remarkable journey. In the days and weeks that followed, the circumstances of the accident became a subject of intense scrutiny. Rumors swirled about the possible causes, from mechanical failure to speculation about Stephanie's role in the crash. Some claimed that Grace had suffered a minor stroke while driving, which led to her losing control of the vehicle. Others suggested that Stephanie, then just 17 years old, may have been behind the wheel, a theory she has consistently denied. The palace, intent on protecting the family's privacy, offered little clarification, leaving the public to piece together the narrative from fragmented accounts. The impact of Grace's death extended far beyond her immediate family. For Monaco, her passing was a devastating blow to the Principality's image and morale. Grace had been more than just a princess. She had been Monaco's ambassador to the world, a figure who brought attention, prestige, and tourism to the tiny nation. Her absence left a void that was deeply felt across all facets of Monegasque life. Prince Rainier, already a reserved and private man, withdrew further into himself following Grace's death. Those close to him observed a profound change in his demeanor, a sadness that never truly left him. He threw himself into his work, perhaps as a way to cope, but the loss of his partner and confidant was evident in his every action. For Caroline, Albert, and Stephanie, the tragedy marked the beginning of a new and challenging chapter. Caroline, as the eldest, stepped into a more prominent role within the family, supporting her father and younger siblings while navigating her own grief. Albert, the heir to the throne, was thrust into the spotlight with new expectations placed upon him. Stephanie, the youngest and most directly affected by the accident, struggled in the years that followed, her life marked by tabloid scandals and personal turmoil. The world, too, struggled to make sense of Grace Kelly's untimely death. How could someone who seemed so perfect, so untouchable, be taken in such a sudden and tragic manner? It was a stark reminder of life's fragility, even for those who seem to live in fairy tales. For Grace, the lines between her Hollywood narrative and her royal reality had always blurred, but her death brought a heartbreaking finality to the story. Yet even in death, Grace Kelly's legacy endured. Her influence on fashion, cinema, and philanthropy continued to inspire. The Principality of Monaco, which she had helped transform into a modern cultural hub, remained a testament to her vision and dedication. Her children, despite their struggles, carried forward her legacy in their own ways, keeping her memory alive. Grace Kelly's life was one of extraordinary highs and profound lows, a journey that seemed almost too cinematic to be real. And yet, it was real. Every triumph, every sacrifice, every heartbreak. Her story, marked by beauty and tragedy, remains a poignant reminder of the complexities behind the public personas we so often idealize. In the wake of Grace Kelly's untimely death, the Principality of Monaco faced the daunting challenge of moving forward without the woman who had become its heart and soul. For decades, Grace had not only symbolized the glamour and elegance of Monaco, but also worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between its royal family and the modern world. Her absence left an unfillable void, and her family, particularly her children, bore the weight of her loss in ways that would shape the rest of their lives. Princess Caroline, the eldest of Grace's 3 children, felt the loss most keenly. At just 25 years old, she was already grappling with the aftermath of her failed marriage to Philippe Junot. Her mother's death thrust her into an unexpected role as a maternal figure for her siblings and a source of emotional support for her grieving father. Caroline quickly rose to the occasion, displaying the same poise and resilience that had defined Grace's public life. But privately, she struggled with the immense pressure of her new responsibilities, all while navigating her own grief. Prince Albert, Grace's only son and the heir to Monaco's throne, faced a different set of challenges. Known for his reserved nature, Albert had always shared a close bond with his mother, who had instilled in him a deep sense of duty and compassion. Her death marked a turning point in his life, pushing him into the spotlight as Monaco's future ruler. While Albert was committed to honoring his mother's legacy, he also found himself grappling with the expectations placed upon him. The years that followed were marked by a delicate balancing act, as he sought to carve out his own identity while carrying forward the values Grace had instilled in him. For Princess Stephanie, the youngest of the Grimaldi siblings, the tragedy was a deeply personal and traumatic experience. Having been in the car with her mother during the accident, Stephanie not only bore the physical scars but also carried the emotional weight of that day. In the years following Grace's death, Stephanie's life became a series of tabloid headlines, often sensationalizing her personal struggles and rebellious choices. From tumultuous relationships to a brief career in music, Stephanie's attempts to find herself were often overshadowed by public scrutiny. Many close to the family believed that her actions were a response to the unresolved trauma of losing her mother in such a harrowing way. Meanwhile, Prince Rainier, the patriarch of the family, retreated into his work as a means of coping with his grief. Known for his stoicism, Rainier rarely spoke publicly about his loss, but those close to him noted a profound change in his demeanor. His focus shifted entirely to preserving Grace's legacy and ensuring that Monaco remained a beacon of culture and prosperity. Rainier spearheaded numerous initiatives in Grace's name, including the establishment of the Princess Grace Foundation, which continues to support emerging talent in the arts. Monaco itself also faced a reckoning in the aftermath of Grace's death. For years, the Principality had leaned heavily on her star power to bolster its image as a glamorous destination for the world's elite. Without her, there was an air of uncertainty about how Monaco would sustain its allure. Yet even in death, Grace's influence endured. Her memory became a cornerstone of Monaco's identity, and her legacy was woven into the fabric of its culture. Events like the annual Princess Grace Awards and the Rose Ball, which she had established during her lifetime, became enduring symbols of her contributions. Grace's legacy extended far beyond Monaco's borders. In Hollywood, she remained an enduring icon of the golden age of cinema. Her films, celebrated for their sophistication and artistry, continued to captivate new generations of audiences. Fashion designers drew inspiration from her timeless style, and countless brides around the world still sought to emulate her iconic wedding gown. Grace's image as a symbol of elegance and grace transcended time, cementing her place in history as one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. The impact of Grace's death on her children became even more evident as they entered adulthood. Caroline, often described as the most like her mother, embraced the role of Monaco's unofficial matriarch. She devoted herself to philanthropic work, much like Grace had done, and became a guiding force for her younger siblings. Caroline's elegance and composure in the face of personal challenges, including the tragic death of her second husband, Stefano Casiraghi, echoed the strength her mother had displayed during her own life. Albert, after years of avoiding the spotlight, eventually came into his own as Monaco's ruler. His efforts to modernize the principality and address pressing issues like environmental conservation reflected the values Grace had instilled in him. Albert often spoke of his mother's influence, crediting her with shaping his approach to leadership and his commitment to serving Monaco with integrity. For Stephanie, the path was less straightforward. Her struggles with identity and public perception persisted, but over time she found her footing through her own philanthropic efforts, particularly in the fight against HIV/AIDS. Stephanie's work in this area, though less publicized than her siblings' achievements, spoke to a quieter but no less meaningful tribute to her mother's legacy of compassion and service. The world's fascination with Grace Kelly's life only deepened after her death. Biographies, documentaries, and retrospectives sought to capture the essence of her story, from her meteoric rise in Hollywood to her transformation into a princess. Yet even with countless tributes and analyses, there remained an air of mystery around Grace, a sense that no amount of storytelling could fully encapsulate the complexities of her life. As time passed, Grace Kelly's story became less about the tragedy of her death and more about the triumph of her legacy. She was remembered not just as a Hollywood icon or a royal figure, but as a woman who navigated extraordinary circumstances with dignity and strength. Her life, though marked by immense challenges, was a testament to the power of resilience and the enduring impact of grace under pressure. Her children, each in their own way, became living embodiments of her legacy, carrying forward the values she had instilled in them. Through their achievements, their struggles, and their unwavering dedication to Monaco, they ensured that Grace Kelly's spirit remained an integral part of the principality's identity. Even decades after her passing, Grace Kelly's influence can still be felt in Monaco and beyond. Her story continues to captivate, reminding us of the complexities behind the public personas we so often idolize. For those who knew her and for the millions who admired her from afar, Grace Kelly remains an enduring symbol of elegance, strength, and humanity, a legacy that will continue to inspire for generations to come. As the decades passed, Grace Kelly's story transitioned from a tale of tragedy to one of enduring inspiration. Her life, though cut short, left an indelible mark not only on Monaco but on the world. Each chapter of her journey, from her early days in Philadelphia to her rise in Hollywood and her transformative role as Princess Grace, offered lessons in resilience, grace, and the power of reinvention. Even in her absence, her legacy evolved, adapting to the changing times while remaining rooted in the timeless values she embodied. Monaco, the tiny principality Grace had helped transform, continued to thrive in the years following her death. The modernization initiatives she had championed were carried forward by her husband, Prince Rainier, and later her son, Prince Albert. Her influence could still be seen in the cultural and charitable institutions she had helped establish, many of which became cornerstones of Monaco's global reputation. The Princess Grace Foundation, founded by Rainier in her memory, continued to support emerging artists, ensuring that Grace's passion for the arts would live on through new generations of talent. For her family, Grace's presence remained a guiding force. Caroline, Albert, and Stephanie often spoke of their mother's influence in shaping their values and decisions. While each of them faced their own challenges and public scrutiny, they carried the lessons Grace had imparted with them. Caroline, in particular, embraced the role of family matriarch, stepping into a position that mirrored her mother's blend of compassion and strength. Her philanthropic work and dedication to preserving Monaco's heritage earned her widespread admiration, further cementing her mother's legacy. Albert's journey as a ruler reflected the principles instilled in him by Grace. His efforts to modernize Monaco while preserving its traditions echoed the balance Grace had sought during her lifetime. As he navigated the challenges of leadership, Albert often spoke of his mother's example, crediting her with teaching him the importance of humility and service. His marriage to Princess Charlene and the birth of their children marked a new chapter for the Grimaldi dynasty, one that carried forward the values Grace had cherished. Stephanie's path was more turbulent, but over time she found her own way to honor her mother's memory. Her involvement in humanitarian efforts, particularly in raising awareness about HIV/AIDS, demonstrated a quiet but meaningful tribute to Grace's legacy of compassion. Stephanie's ability to find purpose in her struggles reflected the resilience that had defined her mother's life. Beyond her family, Grace Kelly remained a cultural icon, celebrated for her timeless elegance and groundbreaking achievements. Her films continued to captivate audiences, and her fashion choices remained a source of inspiration for designers and admirers alike. In many ways, Grace's image became synonymous with classic beauty and sophistication, a standard against which modern icons were often measured. The enduring fascination with Grace's life also fueled countless retellings of her story. Biographies, documentaries, and films sought to unravel the enigma of the Hollywood star turned princess. While many focused on the fairy tale aspects of her journey, others delved deeper into the challenges she faced, offering a more nuanced portrayal of the woman behind the legend. These explorations revealed not only Grace's extraordinary achievements, but also her humanity, reminding audiences that even the most glamorous lives are not without their struggles. For Monaco, Grace Kelly's legacy became a cornerstone of its identity. Her presence was felt in every aspect of the principality's cultural life, from the glittering events she had established to the ongoing philanthropic initiatives that bore her name. The people of Monaco continued to celebrate her contributions, ensuring that her memory remained an integral part of their history. As time moved forward, Grace's story took on new dimensions. In an era increasingly focused on authenticity and relatability, her journey resonated with those who admired her ability to navigate the complexities of her roles with dignity and poise. Grace's life was a reminder that even in the face of immense pressure, it is possible to maintain one's integrity and commitment to service. The lessons of Grace Kelly's life extended far beyond her immediate circle. For aspiring artists, she represented the power of talent and determination. For women balancing multiple roles, she was an example of resilience and grace under pressure. And for anyone facing challenges, her story offered hope that even in the most difficult circumstances, there is the potential for transformation and impact. Her legacy also became a bridge between the past and the future, connecting generations through her timeless appeal. As the world changed, Grace's story remained relevant, a testament to the enduring power of elegance, compassion, and strength. Whether through her films, her fashion, or her contributions to Monaco, Grace Kelly's influence continued to inspire and uplift. In many ways, Grace's life embodied the dualities of human experience: joy and sorrow, triumph and sacrifice, public adoration and private struggles. It was these complexities that made her story so compelling, resonating with audiences long after her passing. Grace Kelly was not just a princess or a Hollywood star. She was a symbol of the potential within all of us to rise above challenges and leave a lasting impact. As Monaco continued to flourish, so did the memory of the woman who had played such a pivotal role in its transformation. Grace Kelly's story was not defined solely by its tragic end, but by the legacy of hope and inspiration she left behind. Her journey reminded the world that true greatness lies not in titles or accolades, but in the ability to touch lives and create a better future. Even now, decades after her death, Grace Kelly's influence can be felt in the lives of those she inspired. From the halls of Monaco's palace to the screens of classic film enthusiasts, her presence endures, a shining light that transcends time. For Grace Kelly, the journey may have ended, but the legacy she created will continue to inspire for generations to come. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.